Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Michelle, and my senior project is the product of about a year of really hard work. This past summer, I was awarded a fellowship from the National Science Foundation to spend the summer and then consequently the fall at the Duke Marine Lab in North Carolina studying humpback whale behavior with a professor there named Doug Nowacek. And I was also co-advised by Dr. Sean Todd here at COA while I was away. So why humpback whales, and why acoustics, and why did I choose to do this project? Well, the ocean is a really, really interesting acoustic environment. Sound travels really, really well in the ocean, and this project gave me a way to look at how marine mammals, in particular humpback whales, use sound. So humpback whales have a really diverse vocal repertoire. Some of you may be familiar with their use of song. You may have heard of humpback song before, but I wasn't looking at song. I was looking at social sounds, which aren't related to song at all. They're completely different. Song is produced just by male whales, usually on the breeding grounds, but social sounds are produced by both male and female whales all over the world, to our knowledge. And previously, there have only been 5 studies, one in Alaska, one in Hawaii, Australia, and then the Gulf of Maine, looking at humpback whale social sounds, and this is the first study that has ever taken place on humpback whale social sounds in Antarctica. So this is a really unique study, and I got to learn a whole bunch of stuff about humpback whales while I did this research. All right, so this was our study area. Unfortunately, I did not get to travel to Antarctica, but Dr. Todd did this past winter. The crew that I was working with at Duke made a research trip in 2009, and we're tagging humpback whales in this portion, inside the little red box, which is a blown-up image on the left, in that portion of the western Antarctic Peninsula. And what they were doing were, so they were tagging whales with these digital acoustic recording tags, and basically what these tags do, so there's one on the end of the pole in the picture on the right. They slap it on the whale's back, and it has suction cups on it, and it has a hydrophone inside of the case, and it also has magnetometers and accelerometers, so it records the movement of the whale as well as the sounds that it's producing. And in total, 18 tags were deployed in 2009 and 2010, and when it was all said and done, about 11 days of continuous sound recordings were made from these tags. These were the 2 types of social sounds that I was looking at. They're called WOPS and GRUNTS. I didn't name them. I don't know why they're called that, but the grunts kind of sound like a grunt. I don't know why they're called a WOP, though. So I'm going to play that for you now. That's a WOP. And then here's a series of grunt calls. Yeah, whales are weird. So those were the calls that I was looking at. And as I said previously, every time I go to advance a slide, it gets stuck. I must be doing something wrong. I'm just going to talk. You know what? We don't need pretty pictures. So basically, I had a lot of data to go through. I had about 2 weeks of data, and if you were to listen to it by ear the whole time, it would take that long, if not longer, for me to do that. So I was creating algorithms in a program called XBAT to go through the data for me and pick out these sounds. I basically created a template of the sound and said, here's a set threshold. Tag anything in my sound file that is within a certain degree of similarity to what I'm looking for. And then when it was all said and done, I ran detectors on all of my data and then got the output from the program, and it said this is how many calls there were per hour, et cetera. And we had hypothesized that, based on a previous study done in the Gulf of Maine, that there would be the majority of the calls would be happening around dawn and dusk, suggesting that these calls would be used for foraging-related activities. Now, that wasn't necessarily the case. I wish I could show you the plot of my data. And it did look like there was some sort of bimodal distribution in terms of calls, but then you have to realize that this was based on an average of all of the whales, and not all of the whales were doing the same things. There were definitely some very chatty humpbacks that would make upwards of 70 calls an hour, and then I had one whale who made 7 calls total a day. So they're all doing different things, and that's what was really interesting when it came down to it, because I went into this thinking that I'm gonna maybe try to figure out what these whales are doing and why they're doing it, but they're all doing something different, and that to me is really, really interesting. So in terms of next steps, in terms of what I want to do with this project, I'm hoping to continue working on this potentially in the future during maybe a PhD program, but that's sort of a little bit in the future. But perhaps making these detection algorithms a little bit better, because I did run into some issues of them. I think I could make them work better to pick out the calls, because I had to do some back calculating to figure out how many calls were being missed by my detectors and things like that. And then I did come across sound in Antarctica, which is a little unusual because what we currently know about humpback whales is that the males make the sound, the males sing on the breeding grounds, and this is a feeding ground, and it's kind of, you know, why are they singing? That's kind of weird. So that's something interesting to look at. And what I'm going to be doing next, about a week after graduation, I'm flying to Hong Kong to study Indo-Pacific humpback dolphins because I've been accepted into a master's program this fall at Trent University, which is in Ontario. And I'll be studying dolphin behavior for the summer and for the next 2 years for my master's. And then I'm hoping after I finish that up, you know, we'll see what happens. I'd like to apply to Duke's PhD program and continue working with this data and get my PhD. So with that, I'll take any questions. Okay.
Questions?
When will you get to go to Antarctica?
I don't know. I've been bugging Sean for years. I don't know. Hopefully, if I do get into Duke's PhD program, I'll probably get to go. So we'll give it 3 or 4 years. We'll see. Tim?
Are there studies done of more accessible mammals that vocalize that suggest where your research may end up?
I'm not entirely sure. I completely understand the question.
Well,
He had asked.
What I mean is that it's very difficult to access a whale in Antarctica and slap a sound recorder on its back and analyze its voice. But are there more accessible mammals that are more available to scientists that have been studied more thoroughly and set up a model for where your research?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that comes to mind is probably birdsong. I mean, it's pretty easy just to go outside and record what you're listening to. I don't know how analogous birdsong is to whale song. I would be hesitant to make those sort of generalizations about what animals are doing. But, I mean, yeah, it's a lot easier just to go outside and record whatever's going on outside as opposed to flying all the way to South America, hopping on a boat, and hopefully not dying in the Southern Ocean while you're chasing whales around. But, you know. Yeah, I'm sure there are easier things I could be doing, but I like challenges. So it's good. All right, thank you.